In this video, I show you how I set up an extreme Enduro tire with a half mousse and tubeless combo in 12 easy steps. Now, you may be wondering why I choose to run this setup over a traditional modified mousse only, or why not just use Tubeless without the mousse? And the answer to both is, of course you can. However, with just Tubeless, you run the risk of a puncture ending your day. With just the mousse, you are limited to a certain pressure field. With this hybrid setup, the mousse serves purely as protection for the Tubeless system and to keep you rolling if you puncture the tire. I run this setup for two reasons. First, when you run an extremely soft mousse-only setup, as required for hard enduro, you need to run multiple and sometimes as many as 3 rim locks in order to keep the bead seated. This setup creates a 360-degree rim lock. Second, I like the feeling you get from air, as opposed to just running a highly modified, super soft mousse. If you lose the air inside the outer tubeless chamber, the mousse will ensure your ability to continue riding, as it keeps the tire from contacting the red tubeless liner and causing premature failure of the tubeless system. I should mention that I'm certainly not the first person to try this. The idea has been around for a while, and I've been using this method for over a year with a trials tire. You also don't need to use a new mousse. Additionally, there is the Tax Protect mousse, which is made specifically for this purpose and doesn't require cutting. We will review that in another video. Step 1. Buy an expensive mousse and then proceed to destroy it. I use the New Tech Nitro Mousse Softy, part number NMS305, which is a relatively small size for use with a large 140 width tire, but works well with Tubeless. I've heard of guys running even smaller mousses also. Some people will cut the mousse completely in half, and that's fine. However, I don't find it necessary with this particular tire and mousse combination. I just make enough room for the red tubeless liner to fit inside. First, I put the dry mousse inside the tire to hold it for cutting. Using a standard utility knife, I cut a V-shaped slot in the inside diameter of the mousse in order to make room for the tubeless system. There is no right or wrong method, so long as we have enough space hollowed out for Tubeless to fit. Once we have the mousse all hollowed out, remove it. Then, lube the inside of the tire with the normal mousse lube. Make sure to spread it around using your hand, completely coating the entire inside surface of the tire. Then, put the mousse back in. The reason we lube the inside of the tire and not the outside of the mousse is to keep the lube from getting wiped off the mousse during installation. Step 1.5. Drink a beer. You just wasted a $150 mousse. This will help ease the pain. We will go over how to prep the Tubeless system to prevent failure. This applies to all Tubeless installs, not just the hybrid setup. Step 2. Set up the Tubeless system on the rim. This is a minimum 2-beer step. Drink at your own pace. The red liner and high-pressure tube are the heart of the Tubeless system. If either of these fail, you are done for the day. So we take great care to minimize that risk through proper setup of the Tubeless system. This involves cleaning the rim completely of any burrs and using either the supplied Tubeless rim tape or Gorilla Tape on the rim itself. Before I mount the Tubeless system on the rim, I take a sip of beer, then coat the entire high-pressure tube and red liner with a thick silicone dielectric grease. This stuff is an extremely heat and water-resistant lubricant that will prevent friction from destroying the high-pressure bladder, which is the #1 source of tubeless failure. I'll include a link to this grease in the description below. Once we have the Tubeless system mounted on the wheel, we mount the tire with the mousse inside, same as we would with any ordinary tubeless installation. Although it's a bit tighter with the mousse inside there, it's not terribly more difficult. Just make sure you have patience and enough beer handy. Next, we take a few more swigs of beer and spoon the tire onto the wheel. A Rabaconda tire changer makes this easier. However, if you are cheap like me, have a welder and enough beer. You can make your own tire mounting stand. I call mine the Rabbi Conda. I'll include a link in the description to a separate video on how I made this. Step 3, drink another beer. Step 4, inflate the system. Once you have everything mounted up, air up the high pressure side to 110 pounds of pressure. Optional step 5, inflate the outer chamber to the desired pressure. You don't need to add any air if you are just using the Tubeless as a 360-degree rim lock. This is the end of step 4 and concludes the installation. Step 5, drink another beer while pondering why you just spent around $500 on a rear wheel setup just so you can pass your buddies on the next hill climb. Step 6, repeat step 5 until all the beer is gone. Peace out, my fellow Enduro primates.